Just like to talk to you a bit more about how to create power in surfing, so that when you get to the top of the wave and you're doing your turns, you've got all the power you need to do the turns you want to do. And one of the critical things is the holding phase in some turns in the sport. So what is the holding phase? In bottom turns and cutbacks, an important component to effective power production is to incorporate a holding phase when performing these manoeuvres. This is where the surfer holds a set body position for a short duration, usually between half to 1 second, to effectively utilise the wave's power before applying their own power. If utilised correctly, the holding phase will allow for maximum power to be created and used by the surfer. If not, the surfer may apply their power too early in the turn, and this is a real common problem, making for a weaker hit off the top or a catching of the rail as the surfer comes out of the top turn or foam rebound. So what does this holding phase look like? And so here's some examples. Here's a backhand bottom turn and a forehand bottom turn. See the backhand bottom turn, surfer comes down and gets into their set body position, and they actually hold this for a period of time, which we'll come back to in a moment. And that's a major part of where the power is maximised through the turn. And so what we're talking about here is that if we come back to here and we go, okay, surfer comes down and they get into their set position. They come down, they get into their set position, and this is about here. They're just about to lean off the board. If we put the timer on up here on the left-hand corner, and we see how long they hold that for, so you can see what they're doing is they're actually in that position. They're holding that position, and then now, around about now, they start to come out of the turn. Okay, so they come around, hold the position, and now they're just starting to come. And when you look up here, it's around about 5.5 of a second or half a second. Not long, but an important part. When we have a look at the forehand bottom turn, we look at the bottom turn and the surfer comes down. They go into their bottom turn. See, again, there's a set position and there's a holding of that position as they come through the base of the turn. Okay, so when we go back to that point where they get into the set position, and we'll call a set position where they touch the wave face with their hand, and we'll say that's the set position, and again, they're in that position, they're staying there, and their hand lifts up around about 0.4, close to half a second. What a lot of surfers do when they come down and do their bottom turn is they come down, they might get into a set position, but they'll only hold it for about a 0.1 or 0.2, and then they'll straighten out of the turn, and it's effectively they're not using the wave's power to its maximum. And what you can think about here is as the surfer comes down and they do their turn, when they're in that set position, the board's up on the rail, the wave's doing the work. So they're getting a free ride through this part of the turn. They're getting the wave's power doing the work, and then as they come out of the turn and they straighten up the face, they apply their power, and that effectively marries the two power sources together, and they've got all the power off the top to do the turn that they wish to do. So when we look at the cutback manoeuvre, we can see the surfer comes out here and performs their backhand cutback. They drive up to the top of the wave. They get into their set position, and you can see that this position's held for a period of time. And then what they do is then they come out, they straighten their body to apply their power, and they marry the two power sources together to create the turn effectively, to have an efficient and powerful turn. So here, when we look at it and we say, okay, well, let's say the set position is when they put the hand on the wave face. We put the timer on at the top here, and you can see that as the surfer comes around, they're basically in the set position until about there. So 0.8 of a second. When we have a look at the forehand cutback, this wave here is a little bit different in the fact that it's a super fat section. And you can see the surfer gets into their set position around about there. And then you can see that they actually hold this position, coming around, holding, and they start to straighten again around about 0.8 or thereabouts. So it's longer than the bottom turn. So in a cutback, the holding is lengthened to use the wave's power effectively before applying their own power. And if it's done correctly, well, then obviously they can get height off the turn, which is ideal in a cutback situation. Just to fill you into the big and full picture of how this applies, whenever you're going across a wave and you're coming to the bottom turn, in this case, and it's a minor bottom turn in the fact that you're only setting up a minor top turn. You can see here that there's no holding of the turn. It's more of a minor bottom turn, what I class as a minor bottom turn, and that sets up a turn off the top, like a half turn off the top. So the bottom turn doesn't have to be as strong in that situation. But if you're setting up a major top turn, whether it's a re-entry, an aerial type of maneuver, in this case a snap, well then you've got to go down and do the full bottom turn, which incorporates the holding phase as he's doing here in the turn. If he comes down and he does a turn like he did previously in the previous section, and he doesn't go and do the full turn, he can still do a turn off the top, but he won't be able to do the biggest turn possible because he hasn't created or utilised the wave's power and hasn't created sufficient power out of his own body to do the best turn possible. So you have to choose what type of bottom turn and how much holding you have to do depending on the section faced. The second thing here is sometimes it's important that you hold the holding phase longer. When we come down here and we look here and we say, okay, well, this is about the holding phase here, we put the timer on again and we can see that he holds this body position until around about there, which is a 0.4, almost 0.5 of a second. And then, which is the normal situation, he comes up and does his turn off the top. But then when he comes down to the second turn here, you can see he gets into his set position. And in this case, he needs to lengthen the bottom turn. So in this case, he's using the wave's power. He's just sitting there getting the free ride. As he's coming around and he's doing the turn, you can see now he's coming out. It's around about 0.8 of a second. And that's because he wants to go, he needs to get length out of the turn. So we're talking about a length bottom turn here, and a big part of that length bottom turn is that you hold the set position for a longer period. And this gets you around the section, it elongates the bottom turn, and then if you do it correctly, you apply the power effectively, and then you get the big hit off the top that you want to achieve. So holding is a big part of power production, and it's a big part of, it's one of the reasons why a lot of people have problems off the top when they're doing their maneuvers off the top, is they don't hold their bottom turns or they don't hold their cutback sufficiently, and therefore they don't create the power or the marrying of the two power sources in an effective way.